start collecting data, there's all types of data. Quantitative data, numerical, counts or measurements. What type of question might I ask you all that would be a quantitative variable?
Your age.
Age, I could ask you all your age, that's quantitative, you will tell me a number. That's quantitative data. What else could I ask?
Height.
Your height, that's quantitative. You're gonna give me a number when I ask you your height. Anything else? I heard somebody quietly, was it phone number? Yeah, that's a number, quantitative. We wouldn't necessarily want to find the average phone number, but we could get numbers from each of you, right? The average phone number would be a little strange. We're going to actually talk about that in a little bit. But the phone number is quantitative. And we could list all day long. How many pets do you have? How many miles is it to your dad's work? Whatever. I mean, we could just all day long we could talk about quantitative data. Categorical data is data that's a name or a label. It's pretty much when your answer is a word, not a number, right? If I asked you your favorite movie, you all might give me different movies, but some of you might have the same one. Those are categories. How many people like The Terminator? How many people like Wizard of Oz? So we could count how many are in each category, but each of you would give me some words as opposed to giving me a number as an answer. A lot of people think that those are still quantitative because I might list, if I ask you, raise your hand if you like to drink coffee. And I can tell you that there's 42 people who like to drink coffee. That's a number, but that's really a yes or no question. Your answer, your individual answer would either be yes or no. Yes, I like coffee. No, I don't. See the difference there? You be careful. Just because you see numbers doesn't make it quantitative. It's whether or not the individual answers are numbers or categories. Say that again?
It's the answer that.
Yes, it's the answer that matters, right? I once had some students who did a project who told me that the average, so they asked everyone what their favorite flavor of ice cream was. So, there's chocolate, strawberry, Neapolitan, I don't remember what else they had, Rocky Road. And they told me that the average flavor of ice cream was 3.6. And I'm glad that people are laughing, which tells me we have a little bit of idea that that's wrong. But what they did is they took all the numbers in the categories. Maybe there were 6 people that said chocolate and 5 people that said strawberry, and they took those numbers and averaged them. But does it make sense that the average ice cream flavor is 3.6? Because those weren't actual quantitative numbers that made any sense. It was really categorical. So it would have been better if they said more people liked chocolate than strawberry or something like that. So categorical is anything that is a name or a label. Okay, the difference there? Okay. Then when we talk about quantitative data, numbers, remember, quantitative, think of quantities. Quantity. There's 2 ways to talk about it. There's discrete and continuous. Discrete means something that's countable. So if I asked you, how many of these pens do I have in my bag today? We go in there and we count, and I probably have 4. Maybe I have 5. Sometimes I pick up an extra one, or maybe I have 3 because I lose one. I try to have 1 of each color. But I couldn't have 7.5. Okay, maybe I broke 1, but I wouldn't have it in my bag if I did. But when I count how many pens I have, it has to be a whole number, right? It doesn't make sense to talk about 7.5 pens. So that's what we mean by discrete, a countable number. It has to be a whole number. It has to be something you're counting. You can't have 7.5 pens. Well, maybe you could, but I don't. Typically, we don't. Right? Or if I asked you how many, I have my Fitbit on, how many steps have I taken today? They're not going to give me a half a step. They're picking it up with their regular steps. Everyone okay? Will be my countable? Has to be a whole number. Now, continuous, there's infinitely possible answers. So let's say I asked you how tall you were in inches. 5 feet, by the way, is 60 inches. So from there, if I asked you how tall you were in inches, anyone want to volunteer their height in inches? She's 64 inches tall, and she's 5'4". Okay. Anybody else? No, I don't care if you're wrong. Yes.
I am actually 5 feet, so.
So she's 60 inches exactly. Anybody else? 69 inches.
65?
65? I claim I'm 65 and a half. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That means I'm 5'5" and a half, right? I could be half an inch. You could measure half an inch. Half a pen didn't make sense when I'm counting them, but half an inch is okay. There are some measurements that can be decimals or fractions. That's what we mean by continuous. If I had a really precise ruler, maybe I'm really 65.369 inches tall, if I really had a really precise way to measure. If you can have a decimal or a fraction, that makes it continuous. Even if the answer is a whole number, if it could have been a fraction or a decimal, that makes it continuous. So there might be a problem where they say, here's a person's salary, they earn $12 an hour. Is that discrete or continuous? So you might say, hey, 12's a whole number. That's gotta be discrete. She said whole numbers are discrete. But the question really is, could that 12, could it have been a fraction or a decimal? And would it have made sense? So you could make $12.50 an hour, right? 12.5, or maybe you make $12.32. You could have decimals, that makes it continuous. So discrete data is the ones where the number has to be a whole number. Continuous is where it could be a decimal or a fraction, doesn't necessarily have to be though. Do you understand the subtle difference? So all of you, when I asked you, gave me whole numbers for your heights. But some of you could have given me fractions like I did with mine. Still okay up to there? So there's a lot of categories here. Categorical, right? Is it a quantitative or is it categorical? Is it discrete or is it continuous? You really want to make sure you understand the terminology and ask questions if you don't understand the subtle differences, because that's the big thing here. Is a lot of these things are really close, but subtly different.